All right, we're continuing on our challenge to fall in love with the land of Israel. We're on day 5, and we're continuing on the book Tuv Haaretz, the best of the land, from Rabbi Natan Shapira Zatzal. So he says like that. Due to the iniquities of the generation of the destruction of the holy temple, the forces of the other side, the klipot, negative energies, extended a membrane from all directions surrounding Eretz Israel towards the middle of the opening above the land, as mentioned above, to the extent of sealing off the flow of divine connection from the supernal Jerusalem with the physical Jerusalem, hence the destruction. So we know that is a holy, meaning everything in this world is a reflection of the spiritual world. Though there is a heavenly Jerusalem and there is a physical one, but because of our sin, there was a kind of dry up. We did kind of destroyed that spiritual Jerusalem, and therefore the physical one had to get destroyed, and the pipeline that may brings the flow between the two and to that brings the energy from all the way above is broken, is sealed. It's sealed off. We must bear in mind that when the membrane of the other side interfered, they didn't seal up the opening at one time, at the time of the destruction. Rather, the consequences of the idolatry and other transgressions drew forth those forces little by little until the opening was completely sealed. Then came the destruction. Everything is always a progression, allows us time to do tshuva, but sometimes there's a limit. There's a limit to everything. We see from the first destruction an example of this. In that first destruction, the exile started with a portion of land under control of the 10 tribes, gradually working its way to the kingdom of Yehuda, and finally to the place of Zion, the temple, Zion, which is the center of the world. So it's as if the earth is being from the center where all the energy comes, little by little is spread, and it's a type of a spiritual cancer, and it spreads from the center to everywhere else. No, it's a little bit different. It's different than what I say. It goes from the outside in. So what it started from the outside, it's spread, because usually that's the way Hashem does things with us. Let's say someone has a tzarat, leprosy, spiritual leprosy. It starts with the house, and then it goes into the skin and goes inside. So it started from the external to the internal. But it's just according to the land of Israel. Because the land of Israel is a microcosm for the rest of the world. So it started there, and then it blocked everything, then the whole rest of the world is affected. Now we must know that the land itself is inherently holy, having been apportioned by God as special as opposed to the rest of earth. Being thus, how is it possible for the klipos to enter this godly portion of land? Therefore, the answer to this question is that in truth the klipos have absolutely no portion in the land. And this really gives us a hint a little bit of like our neshama, right? Like, how is it possible that our neshama, we say every morning our neshama is pure. So is it possible that we become tamei if our soul is pure? It's because it's completely disconnected from this world. There's no the klipos have no portion in our soul either. The best way to understand the phenomena is by parable. A landowner has a servant who has fled his master's servitude. Instead, he works for another man. One day, the original master walks in, finds his servant, and takes him back to where he belongs. So too, the Jewish people have acquired for themselves a master through their transgressions. This master is the klipot, and daily they sacrifice and serve their master. Yet they live in a land not belonging to their master. The klipos have the right to enter the land of Israel and take what is rightfully theirs, forcibly removing them, their servants, to their lands. Yet immediately after that, the gate is reopened. One may ask, if the holiness returned to its original place, then how could the land remain in a state of destruction? The answer is that the Shekhinah ascended to its heavenly abode, while the Jews were exiled from their land to the land of the Gentiles, leaving the land desolate without her children or husband. Therefore, it wasn't significantly re-inhabited until that time when God gazed down from the heavens. The holiness left in order not to dwell amongst the impurity, for that it is its custom, as is known from the secret of Tumat Met, the impurity of death. That being the situation, God has placed the curtain of holiness in that opening, in that firmament above the land of Israel, thus creating a partition between the impurity and the holiness. The land is likened to an aguna who cannot marry another. So we could say a bit the same things, like so an aguna is someone who has a husband, but she doesn't know if he's alive or not, and is therefore cannot remarry. So our land is waiting for its people to come back. The land is like that wife who says, where is my husband? Where is my husband? And where are we? We're in America. We are in Europe. We are where we are, but we're not with our wife. We're not. She thinks we are dead spiritually, and many of us are. But we have to go back to our wife, to the land of Israel. That's the only way that the Shekhinah will come back down, and that's the only way that we can be a light into the nation completely, and bring glory to Hashem. We have to start thinking that, what are you living for? Are you living for yourself? It is. If you are living for yourself, then stay in exile and enjoy your life. But if you don't live for yourself, which is what the Jew doesn't live for himself. He lives for the rest of the world. So if you really live for the rest of the world, what does it matter to you where you live? If you live for the rest of the world, then you go back home where you're supposed to be, and that's where you can be a true light into the nation. You have to rebuild the center of light that's supposed to spread through our nation. We have to remarry the Shekhinah. We have to reconnect to the spiritual thing. So it's as if to say that our soul is waiting, our soul is waiting to remarry our Hashem. Oh, but what is there? There's the body. The body is a kind of klipa that prevents us from marrying Hashem. So there's two ways: or you can destroy the klipa, or you can elevate it. So the goal is to elevate our body, and to marry our body, and by elevating it, and then coming to Hashem. By marrying our body, elevating, purifying our body, we purify the klipa, we're able to be married to Hashem. So, same thing. We go back to the land, we elevate the land, we break the klipos, and then we can elevate the land to receive the temple. The intention of this curtain, this separation that prevents us from being fully connected, says Rabbi Chaim Vital Zatzal, it is known that at the time the Malchus clothed itself with Gvura and Din. So there is judgment, also at the time the Din functions through the external most garment, which is a hue of Techeles, which completes from the root of the word chol, which means to finish chol, which means to finish everything. Thus, at that time, even the Chitzonim, external forces, fear the Malchus as the wrath of the king. Therefore, when the external forces see the Malchus thus clothed, they see from there. That is the essence of the light covering, as is mentioned in the Holy Zohar. So, I'm not sure exactly what he's saying. We'll see. Hopefully, we'll understand later. So, he says that is the essence of the light covering, as is mentioned in the Holy Zohar, which is the secret of the outermost garments, which in the end are the innermost garments. They are also called the holy curtain relative to the internal garments. Therefore, the external forces can enter there. So too, the blessing and bounty are prevented from entering due to the might of the din that is incorporated in that veil. That din prevents the descent of the blessings, which is all a result of the lack of merits and abundance of iniquities amongst the Jews. That is why the land of Israel remains desolate, not because of the impurity, rather from the lack of fulfilling positive mitzvot. Okay, so now we have a glimpse a little bit of what he's saying. They say that because of our sin, there's a din. The din is constriction. It's like a barrier, and that din, because the land of Israel is holy, the incense is holy. So it's like saying that my body, my neshama is holy. So why my body, who is like the land of Israel, there's the soul, we say put it like that, the soul of the land of Israel and the body of Israel. So the essence of Israel, which is my soul, so is always holy. But why is it not revealed? Why is it not connected to the spiritual one? Because there's a din. The din creates So same question. My body is like Eretz Israel. Why? Technically, because the essence of my body is connected is the image of my soul. Why is it cannot it receive the holiness of my soul? Because there's a din. The din, there's a klipa. So my soul and my body are disconnected. There's a filter between the two. So my body, which technically is neutral, is like the earth is a vessel, cannot receive the light of my neshama. Therefore, the only way, and that's why my body feels like it's empty of my soul. I don't feel my soul shining in me. So what he says, so it's not because of the impurity itself, rather is because my neshama is in there. So how come I can feel it if my neshama is holy? It's because is the lack of fulfilling positive mitzvot. I think it's one way to understand. But it's a holy curtain, right? So this is a layer that prevents us from feeling our neshama in us, and that's the lack of fulfilling positive mitzvahs, which, let's not get trapped, is refining our character traits. My character traits, my negative character traits, are like a curtain between our neshama and our body. That's why my body doesn't feel my neshama. Once I work on my character traits, I stop doing what's wrong. But stopping doing what's wrong is not enough. That just allows the flow to be open. But if I want the pipes to be open, but if I want the flow to go, I have to work on my positive character traits, which is activated mostly by the mitzvot aseh. If I do the mitzvot aseh, the positive commandment the proper way, it sends holiness in the holiness that is there, and then finally my body, the land of Israel, can be filled with the positive, the good. There's a lot of good in the land of Israel, and so we see that one of the things that it's saying is that we have to understand that the land of Israel depends on us. how we are gonna act, how we are gonna behave in the land. It's like, how is your soul gonna behave in your body, right? So if we are like the soul of the land of Israel, we are the neshamos, we are the, the, the seeds, and the land of Israel is the egg. So what are the seeds doing? Are the seeds planting? Are the seeds growing? Are the seeds expanding, giving light, giving their energy, so that the land of Israel can grow? Then great. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. Okay, I think we're gonna stop here. And really, the idea is to understand that the land needs us. It's like, oh, I'm moving to the land. Yeah, it's for me to be a Jew. Is more than that. Is the land needs you to become the land of Israel, and it needs you to activate the flow of energy that's supposed to come. So the more Jews go to Israel, the more mitzvahs are done, the more we work on our character traits, the more the energy can flow and take off that din and break the klipos and allow all the flow to go back into the world. So we're not making a favor to the world and to ourselves by staying out in exile. We have to go back to the land of Israel, because that's where we can spread out and elevate the entire world. We live in a little bit of an illusion, a cocoon, right? It's like, oh, my soul goes pray. I go daven, I go in the spiritual world and all that, and I think I'm so holy, all that. But that's not the way to achieve closeness to Hashem in this world. Hashem wants you to go in your body, and in your body you do the mitzvahs. You work on character traits. You work on your positive mitzvahs by doing a positive mitzvah, which is what Adam HaRishon was supposed to do in Gan Eden. Then his whole body can elevate it, and the soul can go even higher, right? But we need our body for that. So same thing. Sometimes we think we have to be connected. No, we have to be disconnected from the world. No, I have to be connected to the world. I have to be connected to my body, and that's the same with the land of Israel. We have to be able to attach. Same thing. It's like a marriage. A woman, a man thinks, oh, I'm good on my own. I can do anything on my own. No, you don't understand. Unless you get married, unless you have a wife, your wife is your pathways to Hashem. Let's remember that the land of Israel is the female, right? So that's what the Shekhinah dwells there, right? That's the temples, the house, that's the woman. So same thing, our wife, we say about our wife, the Shekhinah comes from the wife. The flow of blessing in the house comes from the wife. Your wife is your land of Israel. So if you think you can be close to God, or you achieve anything without your wife, like some people think, right? Because, oh, I'm the one who goes work, I'm the one who pays for the bills, I'm the one who does whatever the man is doing. So he thinks he does so much. Well, yeah, you're doing, you have the potential, but unless you recognize that the source is your wife, unless you recognize that Eretz Israel is your wife, then she's like a naguna. You're married, but you're not married. You're distant. You're separated, and the flow cannot come. So the more you internalize, the more you feel that your wife is the land of Israel, and the land of Israel is your wife, and that nothing can flow without her. That's why it's important to do a lot of mitzvahs aseh with your wife, meaning to give her good, to give chesed to your wife. The more you'll be able to break the din, and the more you'll be able to have the flow go through your wife to you, to the world, and the flow to the land of Israel, to the world. So may we all be able to understand the beauty of the land of Israel. The land of Israel is your spouse. That's how we have to love. We have to fall in love with your spouse. Well, you get used. I'm in the land of Israel. Yeah, I'm in home with my wife. No, you have to understand. You need to constantly have to be with it. Understand there is no elevation without it. And you have to do more and more mitzvot, more and more mitzvahs aseh, which is the chesed, which is the love. It's all about love, obviously we know. So may we fall in love with the land of Israel, with our wife, with our body, and use that with and use that all to elevate the rest of the universe. Baruch Adonai L'olam, amen, amen.